I was speaking at a conference, and I was laying out, like I did last night, the systemic racism, white supremacy, sexism of our foundations. I was laying out our history of slavery and genocide of Native peoples and slavery of African people. And through my talk, as I was laying out these documents and these numbers, there was a young white man sitting near the front row of the center, and I could tell he was distraught, and what I was saying was really impacting him, and he was getting more and more bothered, and he was really struggling kind of spiritually as he's hearing some of this history for the very first time. And during the Q&A, he was one of the first people that raised his hand and asked a question, and he was kind of talking and rambling. He was trying to get his thoughts together as he was talking to me, and he was jumping here and there, and I could tell after about 30 seconds that he wanted to apologize to me. And as he was talking, he was getting closer and closer to breaking down in tears and asking for my forgiveness. I finally said, "Sir, I have to stop you. Let me tell you what's going on for you right now. You are a white American, and you have a highly individualistic worldview. And you are hearing for the very first time about the systemic corporate sin of your nation and your church, but you don't have a corporate theology. And so at the moment, 500 years of dehumanizing history is pressing down on your shoulders, and the only thing you can think about right now is, how am I going to go to sleep tonight? And so you want to break down in tears in front of me. You want to ask for my forgiveness. I, of course, in a public setting as a Christian man, have to forgive you. So now you can go home to your house in the suburbs tonight, and you can go to sleep knowing that you heard about this injustice, you repented of it, you've been forgiven of it, and now you can sleep tonight. I, meanwhile, will get on the plane, go back to the reservation, and have to deal with all the dregs of this injustice, and nothing will have changed. I said, I'm not mad at you, but I don't want you to ask for my forgiveness. You need to sit in this brokenness for a while. You don't even understand the extent of what's happened. And you need to just sit there for a while. And I gave him the tool of lament to sit there. A few years later, I was asked by the Christian Reformed Church to be a part of a study committee to look at the Doctrine of Discovery. I was part of this committee, and we worked for 3 years to write a report, to research both our own history as a denomination and to research the Doctrine of Discovery from the church history as well as from the U.S. history. And after 3 years, we submitted our report to the Board of Trustees. This is a year after I got off the board myself. And in our report, so every denomination, or most denominations, has a touch point with the Doctrine of Discovery. The Methodists, it was their general who killed all of the natives in Sand Creek. The Catholics wrote the doctrine. They ran a lot of boarding schools. The Christian Reformed Church, our touch point, was we ran a boarding school in New Mexico for Navajo and Zuni and Pueblo Indians for about 80 years. And we called Rehoboth Rehoboth because Rehoboth comes from the book of Genesis that says the Lord has given us room and we shall flourish in this land. Not acknowledging that 40 years prior to Rehoboth purchasing that land, Abraham Lincoln had ethnically cleansed all the natives from New Mexico to make way for the Transcontinental Railway. But we said, no, God's given us this, and not we ethnically cleansed it. God gave us this land, and we're going to flourish here. And so in our report, we critiqued the name Rehoboth, and we gave 2 boarding school stories of survivors, one from a BIA boarding school and one from our school. And when we sent it to the Board of Trustees pulled from the report the story of the boarding school survivor who attended our boarding school. It didn't go forward with the public report. And then when we discussed the report in our synod meetings, when it came up, we had a resolution, an article that we voted on that was adopted that said the synod acknowledged that the existing Doctrine of Discovery is a heresy. We reject and condemn it. It helped shape Western culture and led to great injustice. This is not a bad resolution. But then you can go on, you can watch the video. We then pivoted and went into a 20 to 30 minute period of sharing about how great our boarding school was. And then we passed another resolution that said that synod nevertheless recognized also the gospel motivation in response to the Great Commission, as well as to the love and grace extended over many years by missionaries sent out by the CRC to the indigenous peoples of Canada and the US. And for this, we give thanks to God and honor their dedication. So we acknowledge the Doctrine of Discovery is a heresy, and then we said, but we weren't doing that. We were doing the Great Commission. And then we sing the praises of our early missionaries. Now, if you know anything about Reformed religion, it has a very robust theology on the depravity of all humankind. And it has a very robust theology on we are saved by faith and not by works. But the moment our denomination was confronted with multi-generational corporate systemic sin, we forget our theologies and we instead go back and justify ourselves not through the blood of Christ, but through our works. So whose blood covers multi-generational systemic corporate sin? I was at Standing Rock. Now at Standing Rock, which was where our native peoples gathered together as the host people of this land to tell this nation of undocumented immigrants that you cannot drink oil and water is life. And as we're there, several denominations decide that they want to come forward and read repudiations of the Doctrine of Discovery. So they read their repudiations in front of the sacred fire. They denounce the Doctrine of Discovery. Tears are shed, hugs are given, healing is taking place. There's racial reconciliation going on all around. And I was there about a week later, and I met with one of the people who organized this event, and I said, this is interesting, I'm curious. The Doctrine of Discovery is literally the legal precedent for land titles, established by John Marshall in 1823, referenced by the court by name in 1954, 1985, and most recently in an opinion written by Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 2005. So I'm curious, when you repudiated the Doctrine of Discovery, did you give any land back? No, we didn't do that. Oh, well, this probably came together quickly. It would have taken a lot of time to get that in order. I'm not completely shocked. But I said, but denominations own a lot of land. And again, if a tribe were to sue for sovereignty over their traditional lands, eventually your defense would rest on this Doctrine of Discovery, which the U.S. has used as a legal document to prop up land titles, and you've repudiated this, saying it has no legal standing. So I'm curious, did you tell the tribes when you read your statements of repudiation that if they were to sue you, you would not defend yourself in court because your only defense would be this doctrine that you've repudiated? And they said, no, we didn't do that either. I said, oh. So this was just a photo op, right? Tears were shed, hugs were given, reconciliation happened, but nothing really changed. Well, he wasn't happy with me, but he's like, yeah, that's what it was. Whose blood covers systemic, corporate, multi-generational sin? Why can the church not? If you murder somebody, if you commit adultery with somebody, if you steal from somebody and you go to the church and you say, I need help, the church will tell you, there is this guy Jesus, he died on a cross, he shed his blood, he paid the price for your sin, and you can have salvation because of that. That doesn't mean you won't face legal consequences for what you did, but you can be saved and be set free from this life. Jesus can help you. But when you come to the church and say, I want to deal with the sin of slavery, I want to deal with the sin of mass incarceration, I want to deal with the sin of genocide and ethnic cleansing, I want to deal with the sin of separating families at our borders, I want to deal with the sin that I'm living on land that was ethnically cleansed, and you go to the church, And they're like, can we wash your feet? We don't know what to do. Why?